Hello, Dave Graybill, fishingmagician.com, and today I'm in the Quincy Wildlife Area, not far from the town of Quincy, Washington. This wildlife area covers 15,000 acres and is great habitat for local deer and a whole range of other wildlife. And also, this is where there are several lakes that are extremely popular with anglers. They have the special distinction of opening on March 1st, almost 2 months prior to the general trout season opener. So many anglers start their season at these lakes. Behind me right now is Quincy Lake, and it has an excellent boat launch. There's camping areas here, vault toilets. Behind me, there's several boats, pontoon boats, and also other small aluminum boats that are trolling for rainbow. And this is one of the better trout managed lakes here in the region. They keep it full of fresh rainbow every year. And in fact, there's even a trout derby sometime in mid to late March that is a further encouragement to get people out here fishing. That's sponsored by the Quincy Chamber of Commerce, and in addition to the regular plants by the Department of Fish and Wildlife of Rainbow, they add an additional number just prior to the Derby, including some real whoppers, just to spice the action. As I mentioned, there are several lakes in the Quincy Wildlife Area that are of particular interest to anglers, and we'll visit a few of them today. Just down the road from Quincy Lake is Burke Lake. This is another very popular lake. There's an excellent new boat launch with a dock. There's another launch just at the very far end of the lake that you can put a small boat in, and pontoon boats. And it's one of those that attracts so many anglers because not only is it good in the early season, it also fishes very well throughout the summer and even into the fall. You will always see a lot of RVs parked around this lake. People love to spend more than just a single day here. Both Burke and Quincy lakes are under 100 acres, so it's easy to cover the whole lake by boat. And also there's excellent shore access to both of these lakes. And so the shores are lined with eager anglers throughout the season. Right behind me is the boat launch on Evergreen Reservoir. Burke and Quincy lakes are less than 100 acres. Evergreen Reservoir is 247 acres. It's a long lake that extends to the east. This boat ramp is a concrete structure, and Evergreen fills about mid to late April each year as the irrigation systems are charged. Evergreen is a spiny ray lake, and it has perch and bluegill and crappie, but a very good population of largemouth bass, smallmouth bass that are a tremendous amount of fun. They're very abundant in this reservoir. There's also walleye and tiger muskie. Tiger muskie are a cross between muskellunge and northern pike, and they grow big. I have caught tiger muskie to 34 inches, but there's much larger fish here in the reservoir. These are often planted by the Department of Fish and Wildlife to keep the populations of smaller spiny rays in check. And they work very well, and they're a thrill to catch. Evergreen Reservoir also has a launch at the very top end that I'll show you later. But the rocky shale slide shorelines are excellent places to look for bass here at Evergreen Reservoir. I wanted to show you the basic rig for catching trout here on Burke and Quincy Lake. Probably 90% of the people you see fishing here are using a setup similar to this. I've got about an 8.5-foot spinning rod rigged with a sliding sinker. As you can see, this slides up and down the line when you cast. The hook is typically baited with some color of power bait. It's extremely popular. And the idea is that this is a floating bait. So when you cast it, it will rise above the weeds and be in the range of a passing trout. Also, the sliding sinker, what it does, it allows the leader to pass up through the sinker when it lays on the bottom. When a trout picks that up and you leave some slack in your line, the fish will not feel that weight, but you'll see the bite on your line, and it's a very effective way to catch trout. Power bait's an excellent bait for this type of fishing. I like to use a shrimp and marshmallow combo, or even a night crawler and marshmallow combo. Again, the marshmallow will float that bait up across the bottom and give you an idea when a trout is biting without them feeling the weight and dropping your hook. Behind me is the Burke Lake access at the very far eastern end of the lake. There is a concrete ramp here, but it's very narrow and deep. Most people will use smaller boats to access this end of the lake. There are trails here where people are walking further down the lake, and this is not visited quite as often as the lower lake, and so the opportunity to find undisturbed trout is probably much better. You can find this access off of Highway 281 and look for Road 3 northwest. There's a good parking lot area and a vault toilet, and it's another option to fish Burke Lake. I'm now at the very east end of Evergreen Reservoir. You just follow the road past the sign to Burke Lake on Road 3 northwest, and it bottoms out here at the public access area and boat launch at Evergreen Reservoir. There's a vault toilet here, a good boat ramp, no dock, but I've used this many times. This is really my favorite end of Evergreen Reservoir, and the bass fishing up here is tremendously good. This is the end where you see most people fishing for walleye, but you can fish your way down casting for bass off both shores. There's excellent shale slides and other banks that you can cast to, and this lake is loaded with smallmouth bass, and there's good numbers of largemouth in this lake as well. Before I leave the Quincy Wildlife Area, there's a few other lakes that I want to mention that are within the wildlife area. Some of them require a hike. Ancient Lake, the trailhead to Ancient Lake, is just past Stan Coffin, which is the first lake you encounter when you enter the wildlife area. It's a great hike. People also take their bikes and follow the trail to Ancient Lake, which has both rainbow and largemouth bass in it. Very popular with fly fishermen is Dusty Lake. It's accessed by a very steep trail, but there's big rainbow, tiger trout, and browns waiting at the bottom for you. There's also some walk-in lakes that get a lot of interest, well, I should say, not that frequently visited by anglers who want to walk in through the desert landscape here, but they offer the opportunity for large carryover trout, as they are not often visited. Those are Cup, Crystal, and Cliff Lakes. So those are the lakes I'd like to introduce to you here in the Quincy Wildlife Area, and definitely a great place with a variety of opportunities for anglers, as well as people that just enjoy camping here in this landscape of Eastern Washington. So if you've got a large boat, a small boat, a kayak, the lakes in the Quincy Wildlife Area should be on your list to visit when you're in Grant County. Before leaving this area of Grant County, I wanted to make a quick stop at Martha Lake. This is another lake that opens on March 1st, and although it's just a shallow, long lake, it produces a surprising number of limits of rainbow on opening day, and including a surprising number of carryover rainbow trout. It's just a few miles due east of the town of George and not far from the Quincy Wildlife Area. So it's another one to add to your list of early spring opportunities for trout fishing here in Grant County. Martha Lake is just about due east of the town of George by just a couple of miles. And then to the west, a few miles from George, is Kichi Lake, which is another March 1st opening lake. There's good shore access here, and it's not a particularly large lake, but it produces some of the best catches of rainbow on the March 1st opener. This is another one to check out when you're looking for trout fishing here in Grant County. Well, as you can see, there's a lot of opportunity for anglers here in Grant County, from the Quincy Wildlife Refuge to these lakes just outside of George. You'll be able to learn more about Grant County lakes by visiting the Dave Graybill channel on YouTube, where I'll be posting many of these videos about fishing here in Grant County. You can also learn more about the different events and other attractions in Grant County by visiting tourgrantcounty.com.